Buffalo Calf Rolled Ladies, a northern Cheyenne warrior who lived during the 1870s when the U.S. government was uprooting the Great Plains indigenous populations, are not well known. However, we should learn more about her because she was the one who killed Lieutenant George Custer at the historic Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. The early life and background of the lady, who would go on to play a key role in some of the most well-known incidents involving the annihilation of the Plains Indians and the American government's battle against them in the 1870s, are little known. Buffalo Calf Rolled women, often known as brave women or just Buffalo Calf Rolled women, were most likely born in the 1840s or early 1850s. She belonged to the Great Plains Cheyenne tribe, an indigenous group. The Great Plains, a vast region of the American mainland that stretches west from the Great Lakes and includes the present-day U.S. states of Kansas, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, as well as portions of Colorado, Iowa, Minnesota, and Montana, as well as parts of Canada, north of the Dakotas, and Montana, was home to a diverse group of Native Americans in the 19th century, including the Cheyenne. Among the indigenous groups of the Great Plains, the Sioux were prominent, categorized into bands based on their dialects: Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota. At the time of Buffalo Calf Road woman's birth, these indigenous communities were just starting to experience the encroachment of what they viewed as invaders from the east. In the early 19th century, the United States expanded westward from the eastern seaboard into the Great Lakes area, leading to significant urban growth in cities like Chicago. American and European settlers began to venture even further west into the Great Plains in search of new territories, marking the onset of a challenging era for the Great Plains Indians. The first significant conflict between the U.S. government and the indigenous peoples of the Great Plains arose in 1854 during Buffalo Calf Road woman's childhood. This conflict, known as the First Sioux War, lasted from 1854 to 1856. Additional confrontations occurred in the 1860s when the U.S. government failed to honor a prior agreement with certain Sioux groups, which involved the cession of their lands to Washington in exchange for substantial compensation. Tensions escalated after 1862, coinciding with a gold rush in Montana that attracted thousands of prospectors migrating through the Great Plains toward Grasshopper Creek and Elder Gulch, where gold was rumored to be found. Ultimately, in 1868, after further unrest, the Treaty of Fort Laramie was signed between the U.S. government and various indigenous groups of the Great Plains. This treaty designated the Black Hills and parts of Dakota and Wyoming for the indigenous peoples, along with several reservations in Nebraska and Montana. However, this agreement would only provide a temporary respite, and Buffalo Calf Road woman would play a significant role in the events that unfolded when hostilities resumed in the 1870s. By the mid-1870s, Buffalo Calf Road woman had entered into marriage, although information regarding her personal life prior to 1876 is quite limited. It is known that she wed a man named Black Coyote, with whom she had 2 children. These children were likely born in the early to mid-1870s, as a somewhat romanticized account later describes Buffalo Calf Road woman riding into battle in 1876 with her infant on her back. The events that led to her becoming a prominent figure began in 1874, when the U.S. government dispatched an expedition from Bismarck, North Dakota, into the Black Hills. The purpose of this expedition was to identify a suitable location for a fort, further explore the area, and assess the potential for lucrative gold mining. This mission was led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, who would later gain notoriety for negative reasons. The 1874 expedition into the Black Hills breached the Treaty of Fort Laramie. However, the Sioux and other Great Plains tribes did not respond immediately. Their reaction was prompted by subsequent developments. After the expedition, news spread about significant gold deposits in the Black Hills, leading to a surge of prospectors and speculators eager to seek their fortunes. Initially, some Sioux leaders, including Red Cloud and Spotted Tail, attempted to negotiate with the U.S. government, sending delegations to Washington, D.C., to request an end to the influx of settlers. However, others were no longer interested in negotiations. Consequently, Chief Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse united a confederacy of Sioux and Cheyenne to wage war against the U.S. government in 1876. This conflict, known as the Great Sioux War, marked the emergence of Buffalo Calf Road Woman as a significant figure, with her first notable involvement occurring during the Battle of the Rosebud on June 17, 1876, in the Montana Territory. A force estimated to be between 1,000 and 2,000 Sioux and Cheyenne warriors confronted approximately 900 American soldiers, commanded by General George R. Crook near Rosebud Creek. The ensuing hours were marked by sporadic clashes, during which the Sioux and Cheyenne made attempts to advance against Crook's troops before temporarily withdrawing. However, as the battle progressed, Crook began to gain the advantage, prompting the Sioux and Cheyenne to retreat. In a dramatic turn, Buffalo Calf Road Woman rode back into the fray against Crook's forces. Her brother, Chief Comes in Sight, a notable Cheyenne warrior, had been injured and would be left behind if no action was taken. Buffalo Calf Road Woman bravely rescued her brother, bringing him back to safety. Accounts of the battle suggest that her courageous act inspired the Sioux and Cheyenne to regroup, ultimately forcing Crook to execute a tactical withdrawal to await reinforcements. In recognition of her bravery, the people of the Great Plains referred to this encounter as the battle where the girl saved her brother. Nevertheless, the Battle of the Rosebud served merely as a precursor to the more notorious conflict of the Great Sioux War. Just over a week later, on June 25, 1876, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse assembled a force of approximately 2,000 to 2,500 Sioux and Cheyenne along the Little Bighorn River within the Crow Indian Reservation in southeastern Montana. Buffalo Calf Road Woman was among them, lying in wait for an expedition led by Lieutenant Colonel George Custer, the same U.S. commander who had previously led an expedition into the Black Hills in 1874, which ultimately contributed to the onset of the Great Sioux War. Custer commanded the 7th Cavalry Regiment, consisting of around 700 men, but on this day he would commit a significant blunder. Buffalo Calf Road Woman is now recognized as the individual who is believed to have killed Custer. Despite this, Custer's last stand, as it is referred to in American historical narratives, is primarily a matter of U.S. law. In reality, our understanding of Custer's fate is limited, as nearly all Americans present were killed, leaving only the Sioux and Cheyenne as surviving witnesses. In 2005, a significant disclosure emerged. Cheyenne elder Frank Rowland revealed to an independent record in Montana regarding the Battle of Little Bighorn that the chiefs had vowed to maintain silence for 100 summers. With that period now complete, they are breaking their silence. Rowland recounted how several female warriors were positioned on the periphery of the battle when Buffalo Calf Road Woman advanced and struck Custer from his horse with a club. It is believed that he either fell or sustained a head injury during the encounter, leading to his death at her hands. Consequently, Buffalo Calf Road Woman has secured her place in American history as the woman who ended Custer's life during his final stand. The Battle of Little Bighorn subsequently became the most renowned event in the conflicts between the U.S. government and the indigenous peoples of the Great Plains. However, the significant victory achieved by the Sioux and Cheyenne at this battle marked the zenith of their success in the Great Sioux War. Following the news of Custer's defeat, the government dispatched additional troops to the area that autumn. As military operations intensified in the spring of 1877, several tribes involved in the conflict began to surrender to the government. In September 1877, Crazy Horse was captured and killed, while Sitting Bull led some of his followers across the northern border into Canada shortly thereafter. By 1878, the conflict had reached its conclusion, leading to the relocation of many participants to new Indian reservations. A significant number of the Cheyenne, including Buffalo Calf Road Woman, her husband Black Coyote, and their 2 children, were moved south to Oklahoma. It was during their confinement there that the final chapter of the life of the woman who killed Custer at Little Bighorn unfolded. Soon after their arrival on the Oklahoma reservation, a measles outbreak began to ravage the Cheyenne population. In response, by August 1878, the chiefs initiated plans for their people to return north to their ancestral territories. Consequently, on September 8th, the chiefs, Little Wolf, Dull Knife, Wild Hog, and Left Hand, led approximately 350 Cheyenne, including Buffalo Calf Road Woman and her family, northward from their reservation. This journey would later be referred to as the Northern Cheyenne Exodus. The Northern Cheyenne Exodus ultimately proved successful, as the main group returned north and was eventually granted land in Montana by the federal government, where they were permitted to settle. However, Buffalo Calf Road Woman and her family did not reach this destination. During their journey, her husband, Black Coyote, became embroiled in a dispute with a man named Black Crane, resulting in Black Coyote shooting and killing him. Consequently, he and his extended family, including Buffalo Calf Road Woman, were expelled from the group. Their tragic end came in late spring 1879. At that time, they encountered U.S. soldiers at Mitzvah Creek. In response, troops were dispatched from the nearby Fort Keogh, and on April 10, 1879, the small group was arrested and taken to Miles City, Montana. Black Coyote was charged with murder, found guilty, and was scheduled for execution alongside 3 other males from the group in early June. Buffalo Calf Road Woman, however, did not have a long life. While in custody in Miles City, she fell victim to a Western illness that her body could not withstand, likely either diphtheria or malaria. Just days before his scheduled execution, Black Coyote took his own life. Consequently, the woman who had slain Custer at the Little Bighorn passed away, much like many other Native Americans, not in battle but due to one of the numerous diseases brought to the Americas by European settlers. Thank you all for watching. I hope you found this content engaging. I would love to hear your thoughts on her life in the comments below. If you have any suggestions, please share them as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications to receive updates on my latest videos as soon as they are uploaded.